Buonasera, benvenuti ad un altro appuntamento di The Garage Meets. Aspettiamo che Instagram informa ai nostri spettatori che siamo appunto online, in modo tale che... Oh, ma buonasera, ciao Tia, ciao. Diamo la possibilità appunto a chi aveva piacere di accedere a questa diretta e di poterlo fare. Oggi abbiamo un ospite. Charlie, good evening. Abbiamo un ospite molto speciale in Dré Masso. Ok. In Dré Masso avremo appunto la possibilità di fare due chiacchiere con lui, fargli delle domande. Se alcuni di voi avete delle domande, non esitate a appunto scrivermene nella scatolina apposita e sarò lieto, cercherò di accontentare tutti. In alcuni casi le domande sono veramente tante, quindi io ne ho preparate alcune anch'io. Quindi ancora un minutino, diamo la possibilità a Dré di collegarsi e direi che possiamo partire. Super Francesco, buonasera. Ciao caro. E voi come state, ragazzi? Periodo delicato, purtroppo non cede. Dobbiamo cercare di essere forti in questo periodo e trovare la forza di andare avanti. Io sto bene, c'è la salute, ho comunque i miei impegni tra The Garage, Just One Drop e Nine Falernum, quindi non mi posso assolutamente lamentare. Certo, sempre avanti, sempre avanti. Diamo la possibilità a Dré di... Angelo, buonasera, eccolo, here he is. I'm going to ask him kindly to participate. I think this is the one. Excuse me. Questa diretta sarà tradotta sia in inglese, cioè sarà fatta in inglese e tradotta in italiano, quindi avrete tutti quanti la possibilità di vederla. Mi raccomando, iscrivetevi al nostro canale YouTube dove ci saranno tutte le nostre dirette con tutti gli ospiti che ho avuto la fortuna di avere. Quindi mi raccomando, The Garage Cocktail su YouTube. Allora, in attesa di Dré Masso, Mr. Dale de Groff, what an absolute honor. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. I hope you're well. Okay, here we go. Trasmetti. 1 or 2 seconds for technology to be on our side. Okay. Why? Dré, we seem to have an issue. Thank you. Glad to hear it, Mr. de Groff. Very nice of you to be here with us. I'm just going to sort out this thing. Something's not working. Allora. Ok. Richiesta. Invia richiesta. See if this works. Excuse me. Here we are.
Antonio, how you doing?
Not too bad at all. And yourself?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation to have a chat. We've been kind of doing this thing with obviously the hospitality business going through a very delicate time right now. We're trying to sort of transmit a little bit of our passion that we have for the best job in the world, as I class it. Inviting legends and pioneers of our trade like yourself. By the way, Mr. de Groff is watching.
Yeah, I just saw that. Fantastic. Hey, Dale. Nice to have you in the room.
And so, here we are. It was very nice to be able to, it's very nice to be able to speak to you. Excuse me. So I'm just going to do a little bit of an introduction and then we'll get going if that's okay.
Of course, yeah. First off, thanks for putting this together, Antonio. It's great to see these kind of interviews and little seminars during this time. Nice way for people to connect. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Quindi, ragazzi, come vi ho detto, abbiamo la fortuna di poter ospitare Dré Masso, Dré è una leggenda del mondo dell'ospitalità a tutti gli effetti. Ha lavorato, collaborato e aiutato in qualche maniera circa 35 locali in tutto il mondo. Ha fondato con Henry Besant il Worldwide Cocktail Club, buonanima, e grazie alla guida di Julio Bermejo, che è stato nostro ospite qualche settimana fa, è diventato un esperto, è un appassionato del mondo delle agavi, quindi tequila. È il fondatore di Olmeca Altos, which is never missing from my cabinet. I have the repo somewhere as well. E quindi siamo veramente onorati di poter scambiare due chiacchiere con lui. Dré, just going to translate this for the English viewers. A true legend of the hospitality world. I'm very honored to be able to speak to you today. You worked, collaborated, and partnered with 35 different bars around the world. Am I correct in saying?
Yeah. It continues to grow. You know, I like to get involved with as many projects as possible.
Absolutely. You founded with the belated Henry Besant the Worldwide Cocktail Club, and under Julio Bermejo's guide, you become very passionate about tequila. I was very honored to be able to speak to Julio a couple of weeks back.
Yeah.
Hey, Paolo. We have Mr. Altos Italia here with us, and
hey, Paolo.
Founder of Altos Tequila, which is awesome.
Great. I'm glad you think so. Thank you very much.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan, definitely. Tommy's Margaritas for the win.
Yeah, definitely. And that's probably, a lot of people ask me my drink of choice or my desert island drink, and I never veer from the Tommy's. And it's that drink in many ways is close to my heart. You mentioned Julio; he's been a huge mentor. But quite simply, I think it's one of the most delicious cocktails.
Absolutely. So, Dré, what's the situation like? You're in the UK at the moment, am I correct?
Yeah, we moved back a year ago, and I had spent the 7 years prior to that living abroad. And we came from living in Spain. We had nearly a year in Spain. Prior to that, I wanted to see what life was like in the motherland where my family are from, in Colombia. So we spent a couple of years there in a beautiful spot called Cartagena on the northern coast, part of the Caribbean. So maybe not true Colombia, if you like. Cartagena is, I think it's kind of own world, but a very beautiful place nonetheless. And when we first set off, we went to Indonesia, and Bali became our home, a very beautiful and magical island. So 4 years there, and the company I worked for had a few things going on in Southeast Asia, including Jakarta, which is the capital of Indonesia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. So Bali was the base, but got to explore a few parts of Southeast Asia.
Okay. Quindi ragazzi, Dré ci sta appunto spiegando che di recente si è ritrasferito in Inghilterra, come potete sentire comunque l'inglese è la sua lingua madre. Prima di rientrare in Inghilterra è rimasto per un periodo di tempo in Colombia, a Cartagena per l'esattezza, dove però lui è originario di Bali. Ha viaggiato tantissimo grazie al lavoro, perché l'azienda per cui lavorava l'ha portato appunto, come si diceva, a Jakarta, a differenza di Singapore, e quindi sicuramente è un uomo che è vissuto, insomma, un uomo che sa il fatto suo con tantissima esperienza. So, back to us, Dré. You've worked, I mentioned 35 bars, but there's probably a hell of a lot more. Is there any bar that has left something special as opposed to another?
Yeah, there's a few that I'd say are extremely special to me, and the number one, or the one to talk about first of all, was a bar called Green and Red, that Henry and I were co-owners of, and we opened that in 2005 to through 2010. And I'll allow you to translate in a second. I've got to remember to do that. But that really was inspired by spending time with Julio. It was inspired by our trips to Mexico, and the venue that Julio's family own and run, Tommy's Mexican restaurant in San Francisco, and what they do is a huge inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. Quindi gli ho chiesto appunto a Dré il fatto che ha collaborato con veramente tantissimi locali, alcune sono state consulenze, se c'era qualche locale che era particolarmente vicino al suo cuore, e lui mi ha detto uno in particolare, un locale che si chiamava Green Red, aperto di cui erano coproprietari lui e il suo socio all'epoca, Henry Besant appunto, è particolarmente speciale per lui perché molta dell'ispirazione arrivò appunto da Julio Bermejo, dei loro viaggi in Messico, del Tommy's stesso, quindi sicuramente è una cosa che porta ancora con sé oggi. Yeah, I must admit, the time that I spoke to Julio, he's such a nice person.
Lovely. He's so special, and he has a title of ambassador of tequila for the United States, but a lot of people will say the same, that it's almost like has this ambassadorial role for the hospitality industry and for good times. He's such a gem, and leaves a trail wherever he goes. It's hard to keep up with him. And you know, he'd do anything for anyone who will treat him with kindness and respect. He really go out of his way, so he's a real gent.
We could definitely do with more Julio Bermejos in this world, I can assure you.
Yeah. So green and red was a big deal for us, and like many of us, it is one of our dreams as a bartender to become a bar owner. So we got the opportunity to do that in a small way, I guess. But also, in answer to your question, I really think that the company I worked with in Bali, Potato Head, that left a huge mark on my career, and that stage was a huge milestone. And I think a lot of that comes from the boss, a guy called Ronald Achille that no one in our industry really knows. He really keeps himself to himself. I guess in Southeast Asia, people within that business would have heard of him. But a very young guy, very entrepreneurial, always looking to do the best, but in a different way. And I'll allow you to translate that. But every situation, he would test us or push the boundaries for us to do something that was really unique. And it's quite hard to do something that is unique these days.
Yeah. E Joy ci sta spiegando che dal 2005 al 2010 appunto è stato coproprietario del Green and Red, il sogno un pochino di tutti noi bartender, no? O comunque operatori dell'hospitality, avere un locale proprio, possa essere un cocktail bar a differenza di un ristorante. Però un'altra esperienza che sicuramente l'ha segnato molto, in una maniera molto positiva, è stato il suo lavoro con un'azienda che si chiama appunto Potato Head, dove il responsabile era un personaggio che comunque li spingeva sempre ad andare oltre, sempre a ricercare il meglio, sempre in inglese si dice anche un po' thinking outside the box, no? Sempre andare avanti comunque e dimostrare comunque progresso in tutto quello che si faceva. Fantastic. It must have been very motivational for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, always a challenge, and he'd come bouncing into a room and throw an idea at the collective, and we'd always be kind of scratching our heads. As an example of this, we opened a bar called Academy, and that came because I said that we're such a big group now, and even within the Bali venue, there was close to 400 staff. Wow. It's a beach club with a hotel and huge, and the bar team alone was 80 bartenders and barbacks, etc. So we talked a lot about training, and I said we need this academy. And in the end, he's like, oh well, you know, why don't you call this bar academy and use that as a training platform to, you know, train staff almost, I guess, like an apprenticeship, and then they can move on to the other areas. So that was one very kind of forward-thinking aspect of it. But within the academy, he walked in and said, okay, no glassware. So what do you mean? He said, well, you know, you can have drinking vessels, but let's not use any glass, and left the room. And we were like, what do you mean? Like, you know, every bar I know has always had the iconic glassware. So we then started to investigate other options. And that went from everything from, I mean, it was also, maybe translate that and I go into some other aspects of the...
Chiedevo Dré, ovviamente il loro responsabile all'epoca era una persona che appunto richiedeva sempre molto e li spingeva comunque ad andare sempre oltre. E lui ci sta elencando appunto un episodio di questo suo voler spingere appunto il proprio staff, anche perché si parla di un locale in particolare a Bali, avevano oltre 400 membri di staff, tra cui circa 80 bartender e barbacks, quindi stiamo parlando di strutture veramente importanti. Joy appunto gli ha suggerito magari di fare una tipologia di training, no? Di formazione per lo staff, e il suo responsabile appunto ha detto perché non chiamiamo questo locale l'Academy, ad una condizione che non voglio vedere del vetro all'interno. Must have been a challenge, right?
Yeah, so, you know, I love to work with chefs, and they have a great chef team. They always have done. So, you know, the initial thought was perhaps there are certain ingredients we could turn into cups. And there were a couple, but that's pretty limited. A great example of that is the cacao shell.
Yeah.
You know, once gutted and dried, it's this beautiful cup that, you know, actually looks quite great. And we also had a philosophy of being as resourceful as possible and minimizing waste. So the academy also the menu became a study of ingredients. So as an example, drink number one was cacao. So we did do that, where we utilized all the ingredients as best we could, put them back into the drink. We also used local spirit, arak, which is made from rice or coconut or cane. But that was pretty limited. But Bali is renowned also for lots of artisans. They're great at making things, you know, wooden sculptures and art pieces and materials and kind of, you name it, pottery. So, you know, his one statement made us look around us, and we saw that there were these beautiful ceramics. So we asked the question, could we come up with a glassware range, you know, martini, a tumbler, a highball, a shot glass, etc., out of ceramic. It was a big challenge, and also, you know, working at a long time scale. But what we ended up with was very rewarding. It was very different, very unique, and it was the first time I had seen that, and I was lucky to be a part of it.
Fantastic. Quindi ci sta spiegando appunto Dré, uno dei suoi progetti è stato appunto, una volta che il loro responsabile al Potato Head gli aveva spiegato che non voleva l'utilizzo dei bicchieri di vetro, loro hanno iniziato ad investigare altre possibilità, come per esempio dei bicchieri fatti di cacao. Comunque già guardavano quello che era l'ambiente, cercare di riciclare tutto quello che era possibile riciclare dietro il banco bar. Dopodiché a Bali sicuramente ci sono tantissimi artigiani che producevano anche qualcosa che poteva essere utilizzato come un bicchiere in terracotta, in ceramica, e di conseguenza hanno iniziato a sostituire tanti dei bicchieri che noi comunemente utilizziamo in vetro anche con queste tazze di ceramica e quant'altro.
Yeah, and there were lots of, I guess, movements that we encountered as a group during during that time that came from other things happening. So we were seeing that there were people around the world. I think the first people I heard really pushing this were Ian Griffiths and Ryan Chettiwardana talking about minimizing waste and rather than, I guess, in the past it had been maybe something that could be a fad or left of field, that language was becoming more commonly spoken, and Bali itself was at the center of this issue, where it's a paradisal island, but it's suffering from terrible pollution and over tourism, etc. So we said, what could we do to make changes to the behavior of the business? And initially, it was little things like removing plastic straws, putting in bamboo straws. Lots of bamboo grows in Indonesia, and that just became a roller coaster to the point where UNESCO have classified them as a sustainable village, and they won best sustainable bar in Asia. But everything they do now just comes with that thought at the front. But what's beautiful is that it forces you to find a better solution, and more often than not, it seems to fit the brand. If you look to do something that's local for whatever venue, in the end, we discovered that it just naturally made sense to kind of pick up on those choices.
And it's always very good for the environment. So.
And plus, yeah, absolutely.
Quindi Dré ci sta spiegando appunto quelle che erano le tendenze all'epoca, anche un pochino lanciate in Europa da personaggi come Ian Griffiths e Ryan dell'Ian, che erano appunto la sostenibilità dietro il banco bar. Purtroppo Bali ci sta spiegando che comunque è uno di quei resort, seppur paradiso terrestre, ha un problema con i rifiuti non indifferente, molto molto importante. Quindi pian piano venivano eliminate le cannucce, venivano utilizzate cannucce di bambù. C'erano comunque tanti aspetti del mondo del banco bar che potevano aiutare l'ambiente in qualche maniera, cosa molto importante anche quest'oggi. Sicuramente ci sono tante possibilità di in qualche maniera poter aiutare l'ambiente, sicuramente non sono da sottovalutare. Fantastic stuff. Yeah, absolutely. The environment should never be put second, especially in the bar business.
We're learning. Absolutely. Yeah, we're learning. It's taken us a long time, but we're learning, and this is a big conversation and can go on and on and on. I'm glad that it's happening in this industry, and some things are better than others, but it is now something that most of us are thinking about. So it's good.
Excellent. So we already have a couple of questions. I'm going to leave them for now because we'll probably pick up on some of them anyway. What you've seen it all, or most of it anyway. Probably a good percentage of it. Is there any favorite bar that you have that perhaps is still open today that you like to have a drink when obviously COVID permitted?
Yeah, a few. I mean, I get asked this question quite a lot in London, and I have been out of the picture, so maybe that's part of it. I feel even if we jump back a year, I feel London needed some other kind of rejuvenation or push, and maybe coming out of lockdown, this is what we're going to see. Really, in London, I think there's only a few good time bars. Let's take out the hotel equation, because I don't think they're necessarily bars for everyone per se, but just good bars with good drinks and a good unpretentious environment. There's really only a few, and I kind of rat my brain when people ask me, which is on a regular basis. I'm kind of still saying the same thing, which is, I think, Happiness Forgets, which is a really cute little bar. that ticks a lot of boxes for me. So although we are seeing some big misfortune here in the UK, a lot of bars won't reopen. It will give some opportunity for others to pick up on that misfortune and do their own thing in the future. I'm hoping that there's going to be some kind of positivity. We have, I work closely with a guy called Eric Yu. He's got a company called the Breakfast Group. I opened a place with him called Opium in 2012, and I was owner of that. That's in Chinatown, still going, or was going strong. It will continue when we're back to normal. I also, with Eric, opened a place called FAM, F-A-M, with a lady called Megs Miller, who's now out in Mexico. But she is another one like Paolo, an ambassador for agave and in particular Altos Tequila. And we wanted to do a neighborhood bar with vinyl music. So that, that's close to home. But literally just before, I mean, we've been open officially 10 days, but we just opened a new place called The Last Talisman. And it's one of the ones that, you kind of put everything together and it's always a challenge. It's always pretty stressful opening a new place. And it's always rewarding, but this for me, I've used this word already. It's a gem. I collaborated with a chef that I met in Singapore, so the food is inspired by his youth and Asian street food, and he's a huge talent, a guy called Tim Ross Watson, someone to look out for. He's now originally British, now moved back to London, so we worked together on the food concept there, and I worked with the team on the drinks. I'm just really happy with, when all the elements come together. It's in Bermondsey Village on Bermondsey High Street. It's a wonderful venue. It's a great concept. We did the interior design ourselves, and it just feels really good. So I can't wait for that to reopen. I've already committed my time to be there when we do open for the next couple of months on a full-time basis. So come and see it if you can. The Last Talisman.
Ok, allora ragazzi, andate a cercarvi The Last Talisman, che è appunto a Londra. È una delle ultime aperture di Dré. Purtroppo per colpa del Covid è rimasto aperto solo per una decina di giorni. È un locale molto molto particolare perché le decorazioni all'interno del locale sono state fatte dallo staff. Ha collaborato con uno chef che ha espresso un pochino della sua esperienza asiatica. Il menù dei drink c'è la mano di Dré anche sul menù dei drink che hanno composto insieme al team. Però appunto chiedevo, c'è qualche locale in particolare che ama ancora adesso, e un altro appunto è Happiness Forgets, sempre a Londra. Quindi quando il Covid ci permetterà di viaggiare di nuovo, mi raccomando, The Last Talisman a Londra. Fantastic stuff. I can't wait to come back myself. It's probably the best part of our trade, traveling and being able to meet friends and make new friends as well. Absolutely. You mentioned training before, Dré. How important, in your opinion, is training in our trade?
It's incredibly important, super key. There are lots of types of training, and I think we're in a time where I would consider this education in some ways. We learn from each other, and some of the great cats that you've hosted, are hugely inspirational.
There's one that's just turned up right now, Mr. Calabrese. Buonasera.
Ciao. Yeah, he's Salvatore is a huge inspiration for all of us, and in particular I'd say the UK scene, the Italian scene, but globally. we're learning all the time. You know, what's not to love about education? It comes in different shapes and forms. I don't think it is essential for every bartender to know necessarily deep history. A little goes a long way. But I think it's something that, you know, information like that connects us as an industry. But you know, education about how to look after people, about how spirits are made, about how to work efficiently. Subject we talked about, how to be resourceful. You know, all of that is about, you know, doing the best we possibly can.
Assolutamente. Ragazzi, quindi chiedevo appunto a Dré cosa ne pensava della formazione, quanto è importante la formazione nel nostro lavoro. E sicuramente, come dice Dré, è veramente importantissima. Non bisogna magari necessariamente sapere di tutto, però avere delle buone fondamenta sono sicuramente molto importanti. Quindi sicuramente anche delle chiacchierate come queste potrebbero essere formative in qualche maniera, dare magari qualche spunto. Ognuno di noi può imparare da qualcun altro, da chi arriva magari da esperienze più lunghe o più brevi. Penso che ognuno di noi abbiamo lavorato in posti diversi. It's something I always say in my courses, Trey, is the fact that we all come from different experiences. So it doesn't matter, you know, if you've been doing this for 20 years or you've been doing this for 2 years, you know, I think we can always learn from one another. Absolutely.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Something that we did with FAM, but on a very small scale, and something that I think we kind of adopted, or now I adopt as just a way of operating. But historically, you know, the manager would attend, you know, the director meeting or the financial meeting. And with FAM, we said that, you know, we're going to almost run this like a family business, and everyone has a say, from bar back to chef and bartender, floor, etc. And it doesn't matter how long you've been there. And we started to have these round table meetings, and it's very interesting to see the comments from, you know, maybe the young barback who's only just started, but you know, everyone has something to bring.
Absolutely. They can always be very constructive as well, right?
Yeah, and sometimes from a completely different industry they've come. You know, it's just I think it's positive to be open-minded like that, and just, you know, allow everyone to have a voice and to listen to them.
Dré ci sta spiegando che al FAM, una delle sue ultime aperture, avevano instaurato un pochino un sistema quasi familiare, di gestione familiare, quindi quando venivano fatte le riunioni, storicamente parlando, il manager magari si occupava delle riunioni economiche e finanziarie, a differenza magari di una gestione un po' più familiare, dove magari avevi sullo stesso tavolo il barback che aveva appena iniziato a lavorare e magari arrivava da un'altra esperienza lavorativa, sicuramente molto costruttive, perché comunque saltano fuori spunti positivi, negativi, e si può sempre lavorare per migliorare, assolutamente. Okay, I'm going to start off with a question that one of our viewers, Francesco, is mentioned. I'm just going to fetch it. How important is a chef collaboration for you?
Yeah, Francesco, thanks very much. It's a great question. For me, it's been really important, not necessarily essential, but and when I started working in bars, there was this huge gap, and it was very difficult to communicate with chefs. And you know, one of the big bars that really inspired me was a place called the Atlantic. But when I walked into the kitchen, you know, I was pretty much told to get out straight away. But more recently, you know, I have some very good chef friends, and I'm open-minded to listen to what they have to say. More often than not, they have a great technique or great understanding of manipulating ingredients and getting the best flavor out of them. You know, there's loads I've learned from chefs, and this guy in particular, Tim, that I mentioned before, Tim Ross Watson. he has a very good understanding of the bar side. He's owned his own venues where he kind of, you know, dictates what goes on both sides, kitchen, bar, and floor. And but he has a, you know, kind of scientific approach, if you like. Often he explains things to me and it goes straight over my head. But what I find working with him is that, you know, we can accomplish something that, for me, I like to be practical and efficient and get things done, you know, as quick but as good as I can. Some of his techniques are long-winded, so we have to find an in-between. But yeah, you know, chefs go through a very rigorous training program, you know, far more extended than any bartender. So there's a lot to learn from the kitchen.
Hi Marian, how you doing?
Hey Marian.
We have a huge elite. I'm very excited of viewers this evening.
Yeah, so JP, a good friend of mine there. Hey JP.
Ok, quindi ragazzi, chiedevo la domanda che ci ha fatto Francesco: quanto è importante la collaborazione tra bar tra bar e chef, pardon, quindi tra bar e cucina. E Dré ci sta spiegando che è molto importante, anche perché la maggior parte degli chef comunque studia molto di più di noi al bar, hanno una consapevolezza degli ingredienti molto molto importante, riescono ad aiutarci nell'estrapolare. Hey Jack, how you doing? E riescono ad estrapolare al meglio anche determinati sentori e sapori degli ingredienti. Quando ha iniziato Dré diceva che comunque c'era un grandissimo gap, no? tra bar e cucina, cosa che comunque si sta avvicinando tantissimo, perché ci sono tante tecniche della cucina che utilizziamo dietro il banco bar e in alcuni casi anche tecniche del banco bar che vengono utilizzate in cucina. Absolutely, this is something that I pointed out with some of the other people I've had the fortune of speaking to, is the fact that the gap between the bar and the kitchen or chefs and bartenders is finally, I think in the last sort of 10 years or so, finally closing very, very slightly, slowly but surely.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a presentation explaining this a couple of years ago. Someone said, "How can you do a presentation about some trends?" and which is always difficult. I kind of called them movements, things that I could see that were happening. And one of the titles said "Chef Tender," and I, you know, very like ambitiously was saying that this is, you know, finally a thing. But I think there's a lot more that we could see between collaborations of chefs and bartenders. I think we're only going to see amazing, beautiful, delicious things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, okay, how did you come to love the fine agave spirit tequila?
It was definitely down to Julio in many ways. He was in London. We became kind of new friends. He invited me to an exclusive taste bartenders, and at that tasting, it was all 100% agave tequila. At that time in London, we were using the cheapest, you know, the stuff that was accessible, but it was regular or mixto tequila in our speed rails, next to a great gin, a great vodka, great whiskey, etc., great rum. But tequila was the downfall, and Julio came along and, "What are you guys doing?" And at that tasting, I was blown away. But he, as he does at the end, said, "You know, anyone wants to learn more about tequila, reach out, come and see me in San Francisco." And I took that as an invite, and a few months later got on a plane, and, you know, we had no plan, but I just went and listened to him. I mentioned earlier, he's very generous, but he's good at giving information. So I did odd jobs for him and spent a lot of time at Tommy's Mexican Restaurant.
Fantastic.
And I came back to London with just this, you know, newfound passion. He also took me to Mexico, which exploded that passion. You know, anyone that's been to Mexico, you know, it's a wonderful place to visit. It is it's very hospitable. It's very colorful and has amazing flavor. The food is great, but if you look at all aspects of their culture, the music, the art, the religion, it's very inspiring. So it just, it was a domino effect after meeting Julio.
Ok. Ho chiesto a Dré che cosa ha scaturato questa sua passione per l'agave, per il tequila in particolare, e ci sta raccontando appunto, c'era un periodo a Londra dove il tequila che veniva utilizzato nei locali era veramente di scarsissima qualità. Grazie a una seduta di tasting, Dré ha la fortuna di conoscere Julio, dove dopo un po' di chiacchiere gli è stato detto: se hai piacere di approfondire il discorso tequila, vienimi a trovare a San Francisco. Dré qualche mese dopo salì su un aereo e lo prese per parola, e di conseguenza si ritrovò a spendere tantissimo tempo al Tommy's, dove è una cattedrale del mondo delle agavi, è una chiesa del mondo delle agavi, imparando tantissimo appunto da Julio, e questo è stato fondamentalmente quello che è poi cresciuta nella passione e nel voler produrre un tequila tutto suo, insomma. Fantastic stuff. Fantastic. I'm just going to check. We have so many questions coming. Quick one. What was your favorite collaboration?
Well, I think Altos Tequila was a big one for us. Collaborating on opening a bar and being an owner, put a big smile on my face. It was relatively short-lived. That was a 5-year operation. We weren't necessarily around enough to put everything into it, and it just, it was short-lived. But during that time, we were surrounded by this passion for tequila, and we wrote, Henry and I wrote a book called Margarita Rocks, and worked with and collaborated with a lot of different brands that were coming into the UK, just to start launching their brands, their tequila brands, and we had a good relationship with Pernod Ricard, who own Altos Tequila, and it was just brilliant timing. We were asking a lot of people. Henry and I said, "Oh, look, we've opened a bar. Wouldn't it be great to be involved with some liquid and work with a distiller?" And in 2007, when we were starting to have those conversations, I don't think there were many bartenders that had kind of turned that into fruition, if you like. So we were knocking on doors and speaking to lots of people, and it was Pernod Ricard that said, "Hang on, we're working on a new project. And do you guys want to come and see what we're doing and taste it?" And there was no big plan. It just it moved very organically, and I'm still 13 years later from that initial conversation, we're working on some new variants now and doing some good stuff.
Look forward to those, definitely. Dré ci sta spiegando che nel 2007, durante l'apertura di uno dei suoi locali insieme ad Henry, avevano piacere di coinvolgersi con un distillato, con una casa che producesse distillati. All'epoca Pernod Ricard li approcciò e appunto gli chiese se avevano piacere di sentire un attimino i progetti che avevano in corso, e da lì nacque l'avventura con Altos Tequila. Attualmente ci sta comunicando che stanno lavorando su alcune varianti del tequila, tra l'altro è un tequila 100% agave, fatto direttamente da bartenders, by bartenders for bartenders, right?
Yeah, I mean, that phrase. I want it to be for everyone, really. But I tell you why we said that, because I mentioned that there was the entry level tequilas, and then there was new tequilas coming into London, and they were great, but the price point was a huge difference. And as a bartender, we knew that we were tasting new tequila for us that was delicious. we'd put it in a tasting glass, we'd put it in a drink, and it would be incredible. But at that price point, it was quite hard to translate that into a cocktail, and for our guests then, and I'd say even now, to understand why that tequila cocktail was that price. So in many ways there was a chunky gap, and the conversations that we had with House of Tequila, who were the arm for Pernod Ricard in Mexico, we encouraged each other to come up with a tequila that would sit at a reasonable price point. So it had a taste profile that was, what we wanted, that would be good for sipping, good for cocktails, but also, tangible economically, if you like.
Assolutamente. Ho chiesto a Dré, appunto ha menzionato uno dei motto di Altos Tequila, che è dai bartender per i bartender. Specificamente perché da Pernod Ricard gli era stato chiesto di creare un tequila che fosse un pochino accessibile per tutti e da tutti, per il semplice motivo che c'era un bel gap dal tequila da lavoro a tequila molto molto importanti in Inghilterra all'epoca. Di conseguenza a volte veniva difficile cercare di giustificare il prezzo per un tequila magari premium o super premium, come viene chiamato adesso, e di conseguenza col passare del tempo sono riusciti appunto a creare un tequila accessibile un po' per tutti. Dré, unfortunately, okay, no, we have a few more minutes, yeah. I need to keep you on Instagram because it only gives us an hour. I'd love to keep chatting to you for hours on end, but I realize that we will have things to do. So I'm going to see. Okay, we have Charla. Okay, the answer question: the fact that you speak Spanish, how much do you think? Oh no, hold on. How much do you think it gave you a boost to becoming brand ambassador? ¿Podemos hablar en español si quieres?
Sí, podemos intentar. No creo que español tiene nada que ver con el trabajo de embajador. I love languages. I love to travel. I guess from a young age as a kid, I dreamt of having dreamt of having a job that would allow me to travel, and our industry has allowed us to do that, and we're all very good at that. Those who enjoy it, there's an opportunity to do that in a normal situation. I learned Spanish, although having my mother's Colombian, I learned it very late. I kind of picked up on my Spanish from my trips, or like I've lived in Colombia more recently, which has helped, but trips to Mexico at the beginning, drinking tequila really helped. Trips often with Henry, I was often one of the few in the group, so being kind of pushed to speak more, and the tequila helping, so that really accelerated it. But I think even without the Spanish, our industry is very kind of understanding, and there are people who can translate information for you. But yeah, I guess in more recent years, I've spent a lot of time in South America, and that Spanish has helped. It's definitely a bonus.
La nostra amica Shalla appunto chiedeva a Dré se lo spagnolo l'ha aiutato in qualche maniera, ovviamente lavorando tantissimo in Sud America. Dré rispondendo in spagnolo gli ha detto, ha risposto dicendo appunto no, non penso che abbia qualcosa direttamente a che fare. Sicuramente le lingue nel nostro settore sono veramente veramente importanti. La fortuna che abbiamo oggi come oggi è viaggiare tantissimo per il lavoro, di conseguenza le lingue sono imperative, ragazzi. Ci mancherebbe, non sono io sicuramente a dirlo. Ovviamente la sua permanenza in Sud America ha aiutato tantissimo questa cosa. I've been quite lucky on this respect. I'm actually Italian born and bred, believe it or not. But I spent 10 years in the UK, GCSEs, A levels, that sort of thing, and that's where I ended up learning Spanish. So.
Okay. Can I ask you, because you have a very good English accent, so did you go as a, as a teenager or?
Yeah, I was there from the age of 10 to the age of 21.
Okay, good.
I was out in the country, in Gloucestershire, to be honest. To
Hey,
be fair.
nice.
Very close to Jared and Anastasia, where they're currently right now.
Yeah, fantastic.
Fantastic areas, yeah. Okay, Dre, I'm going to ask you one more question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys, the questions I couldn't ask, but unfortunately, Instagram only gives us an hour. Perhaps if Dre has the time, we can do this again at some point in the next few weeks. So make sure you remember those questions. Dre, what advice do you give to bartenders today, or for anybody that's approaching this profession today?
It's a good question. There's something that I've done and I still do. When I realized, 18 years old, I came out of college, I'd been working in a cocktail bar. It wasn't a great cocktail bar, in an area that you may know, Richmond, which is in South London.
Very well.
And I loved, the environment of a bar, but that place had cocktails, and very quickly I realized that, making something beautiful and tasty had a great thing to it. But I was like, right, where do I go? And I made it my business, and I have always done this. And even, going back to what we talked about in Bali, I made it my business to find places that were really good, or find people who could, share some knowledge. That's how I got to work with Henry. When I went to San Francisco, I followed Julio to San Francisco. I made it my business to knock on his door and get up close and get inspired from him. And then when it was time to return, I sent Henry an email. I didn't really know him, but I said, Henry, I've seen the stuff that you've been doing. It all looks brilliant. At the time, he was running a place called the Lonsdale. I said, look, I'm coming back in a month or so. If there's ever a gap, will you let me know? I was lucky that also at that place, a guy called Dick Bradsell worked every Tuesday. So I made it my business to work Tuesdays, learn from him. Douglas Ankara, when he opened the lab, shortly after opening, I was like, Douglas, I need to work here. I guess it's, there's this word that I've just recently discovered called gumption, which is like this satisfaction, this passion, this want to work and work hard, I guess. So that's one thing, finding the right people to learn from, being open-minded. I think that's, there are TED Talks about this, and there are books that can help trigger things to just, almost say yes to more than you normally do. And I'd say I'm always checking myself to listen to people's opinions and learn from them. But I think that's a positive trait. We've mentioned the concept of travel a lot during this, and I think exploration really can open the eyes, and we are like sponges, and I'm fortunate that I've traveled to lots of places, and I'm always seeing something, not necessarily in bars. Sometimes it's in a street food stand, or in a market, and you see how someone has a particular technique or way of stacking things, and always picking something up.
Absolutely. Quindi appunto ho chiesto a Drake che cosa ne pensava da un punto di vista di consiglio da poter dare ai giovani bartender di oggi, o chi decide di approcciare questo lavoro per la prima volta, e sicuramente lavorare sodo, leggete tanti libri, la possibilità di avere, di viaggiare sicuramente aiuta tantissimo il nostro lavoro, di essere un po' più open-minded, di accettare opinioni, di ascoltare le persone e suggerimenti, perché no. Dré, thank you so much for your time. Like I said, perhaps if you have the time, we can do this again another time, because I saw a lot of questions coming up. And unfortunately, we have around to do them all.
This has been like therapy. Thank you very much, and congratulations for staying strong, putting these together. I can see that you've had a great history with this, and I'm sure there's going to be loads more to come. I'll keep my eyes open and look forward to the next one.
Thank you so much. Ragazzi, mi raccomando, the interview with Dré, l'intervista con Dré sarà disponibile, will be available on YouTube, su YouTube da domani. Quindi, Dré, thank you so much. All the best, my friend.
Nice one. Thanks to everyone that's been listening in. Take care. All the best. Hopefully see you in real life sometime in the near future.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Ragazzi, grazie ancora per averci seguito su questa ennesima diretta. Io vi saluto, vi auguro una buona serata. Seguiteci sui nostri social, sia su Instagram che su Facebook, e iscrivetevi al nostro canale YouTube. Una buona serata a tutti.